This is Behind the Climb. I'm Kieran Harris. Every week, I sit down with high performers who faced real obstacles, and we get into the part most people skip. Not the highlight reel, the grind, the doubt, the decisions that actually got them up the mountain. I run a scaling business as a founder and CEO, so I know the climb firsthand, and I want to help you make yours. We unpack grit, determination, and mindset, and we pull out the practical lessons that you can apply to your own business, your leadership, and your daily life. No fluff, just an honest story behind the climb. Today's guest is Jonathan Edgeley, a fellow ADHDer and CEO of Montrose Health Group. Jonathan's keen to use his lived experience to help others, and that is now found in his business that is rapidly growing across the UK. I'm personally passionate about this subject. Being an ADHD myself and having that go through to my children, I've lived these experiences. We go through his life now, his family life, how he's running his businesses, and the experiences he's had in the lead up to that. Life as an ADHD can be tough, and Jonathan goes in that with me, and we share our stories. This is Behind the Climb. Jonathan, thank you for coming on Behind the Climb.
Pleasure.
Absolutely great to have you here. I know we've met in the past, but for viewers, tell us about you, John, what you're up to now, where you're at in business, and your life as it stands.
Of course. Well, it's great. It's an honour to be here, and it's great to have met you.
Likewise, thank you for
being here. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast. So, I'm the CEO, founder of Montrose Health Group, and we've been going now for just over 5 years. We're a CQC regulated independent healthcare business. Basically, what that means is we help people who are challenged with ADHD and autism and also addiction. So we're HQ'd in Sheffield, but we offer a national service. We've got an international reach. We have clients coming from all over the world to us. We've had a guy flying from Canada recently to stay with us. So
wow.
We offer both inpatient services, one guest at a time, residential, and we offer outpatient ADHD and autism services for kids and adults.
Nice. So obviously, growing that group, I'm not sure how large it is now or what sort of scale it's at, but it's sounding like it's growing arms and legs.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when I set it up, I'd worked in the healthcare industry for about 6 years prior to setting up Montrose, and it was me. I set it up on my own. I had aspirations to become a market leader, do something very different, disrupt the market, and provide a very compassionate, caring service. And I'd seen a lot of services in operation who were excellent, but very clinically led. And we wanted to bring in some softer, more therapeutic elements and aspects and deal with the human in its entire form, i.e. mind, body, spirit, rather than just working in the mind. So triangulating and bringing all those three aspects in was going to be a bit of a game changer in the industry. But yeah, fast forward 5 years, we've now got about, with all our associates, about 70 staff. And as I say, we operate out of Sheffield, but we've got properties in Derbyshire as retreats. We've just opened an office in Oxford. We're looking at opening probably 5 to 7 regional sites over the next 2 years.
Wow.
And that's just to deal with the rapid growth for the ADHD and autism assessment services.
Yes, obviously, as you know, it's a point that touches me and my family daily, really, because we've suffered through the systems that are there but broken, getting diagnosis for children. And I'm actively sharing online my experiences, lived experiences with the diagnosis and getting the support children need. So what you do is not only clearly needed, but fantastic work. And it's amazing that you scaled it so fast. And for me, for the viewers or the listeners, it's two fellow ADHDers.
Yep.
Obviously, we've both faced battles with ADHD. But I feel like at the moment, it sounds like you've really done what I've managed to do, which is grab hold of your ADHD.
Yeah.
Take the superpowers, which is allowing you to scale the company to 70 staff, which is, no mean feat, and scaling internationally and putting that passion into it. And I think if I can get one thing out of this episode, is that an ADHD person hears this and thinks, actually, yeah, this isn't a setback. It's a superpower.
Yeah.
You've just got to learn how to railroad it.
I think I would agree with some of that, and I think more and more people are coming through now and recognizing ADHD and autism as something that can really be helpful in their lives. But let's be honest, it's a double-edged sword. You know, pre-diagnosis for me, life was tough, and I found it incredibly difficult. You know, I liked all the shiny stuff. I liked doing the things that switched me on inside, and I didn't like doing the things that I found mundane and boring, and I'd leave them. Hence the reason why, you know, I get a parking ticket. I wouldn't pay the parking ticket because I forget about it, and then 3 months later, I've got an even greater fine that I've got to pay that I'm looking at, and I'm feeling all anxious and nervous about because I wasn't able to do it. I procrastinate. I leave it and leave it and leave it until it becomes so much pressure I've got to deal with it. And that's been a cycle.
Yeah, they're the hidden, like, physical costs of ADHD that people just don't understand, do they, really?
No.
I mean, me personally, I kind of get a bit of a buzz out of, I call it car park roulette. So in my eyes, if I park wherever I want to park, let's say 10 times and only get a ticket twice, it's about the same cost as me parking 10 times legitimately.
You're up.
Yeah, exactly. So I call it car park roulette, and every time I walk back to my car, I'm like, oh, here we go. Have I got a ticket? Have I not? So
well, that's the dopamine.
I've kind of gamified it, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I guess we can do, but that, you know, and that's the dopamine hit, isn't it? That's the thing that we crave. And, you know, my pre-diagnosis, it was all about that. You know, speeding tickets, parking fines, you know, missed meetings, late for important things that were family related, not turning up, completely forgetting about it, and getting a really bad rep in the process, and not really understanding why that was. Maybe I'm just a little bit broken and I'm not firing on all cylinders for some reason. But then I would look at that and go, hang on a minute, I've got a pretty successful business. I know where I'm going. I'm very driven. I'm very passionate. But on the flip side of that, my life's quite unmanageable.
Did you ever have that point where you're like, this isn't me? Where you do things that happen, you'd be like, this isn't me. And the people used to say to me, why did you do that? And I'd be like, I can't tell you. I wish I could.
I think it's a really good question, and I appreciate you sharing that in your experience. And I think for me, there have been a number of occasions in my life, and we'll get onto it in a bit more detail shortly, but there have been a number of instances and situations in my life that I've been at that I haven't been present for, but I've been there, and I've acted inappropriately because my mind's somewhere else. I'm not in the moment. I might be present there physically, but my head's somewhere else, and I can come across as quite rude, and I could come across as disinterested, disengaged, when I don't mean to be doing it that way, you know. So I think, yeah, I can relate to what you're saying, but there have been other times that I've certainly woken up the next morning, or come round, should I say, thinking, shit, did I really do that? Yeah.
Hangxiety, I used to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There've been one or two occasions that, you know, really I'm not proud of.
But there's no such thing as a mistake or a failure, only a lesson. I think once you start to learn from it and lean into it.
Yeah, but sometimes I repeat the same mistake and expected a different result. So I can do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, and not understanding why I'm still getting a sore head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the next day.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I want to go back, mate. So obviously, just to setting up Montrose, and you mentioned you wanted to add the holistic side of things. I'm assuming, obviously, please steer me in the right direction, but did that come from lived experience?
The driver behind. So what happened was, I'll give you a bit of context and a bit of background to this. So when I was 30 years old,
5 minutes ago, that was.
I wish. At times it does feel like that. But at 30 years old, I found myself in rehab. because I got a very addictive personality, and I had a problematic relationship with alcohol and substances, right? And I had a pretty devastating relationship with them in my 20s that led to a number of different things happening that were very difficult for me and for those people around me and close to me at that time. So in 2006-07, I found myself in South Africa in a rehab, and I was there for 4 months.
May I ask why South Africa? Was that just something that you found, or just because it's in the bush and you're thinking you can't get to anything else out there? Or
I think my dad wanted to get me as far away from him as possible at that time.
He spun the globe and thought,
there's
right
good,
there.
There's good.
And was your dad supportive? Was he there to pick you up and try and put the pieces together? Because I believe we're all the product of our upbringing, and raising an ADHD child is not easy, as you probably are fully aware.
Yeah.
And I don't want to knock your parents here, by the way. I'm just wondering if they...
No, well, I mean, it's an interesting question, and I think yes or no. Yes and no. Of course he was, because I'm his son, but I think he was limited in his understanding of my condition. And therefore, it's quite difficult and challenging to help somebody if you don't understand what it is that they're going through. You know, you talked about lived experience earlier. You know, the therapeutic value of one person with ADHD supporting another person with ADHD is unparalleled, right? And it's the same with addiction. It's the same with recovery, which is at the other side of addiction. You know, the power in me sharing my experience with somebody else who's in it and struggling with an addiction at the moment, I can probably reach them and help them when they're ready, over and above a doctor or a psychiatrist or anybody else. And I'm not saying just me, by the way, I'm saying people in recovery, because we talk from the heart. It's a heart-to-heart conversation rather than a head-to-head conversation. You know, and if I can share where I've been and my experiences, and you're looking at me going, oh my God, he's talking about me, how does he know that? And I go, because I've been there, that's me.
Yeah, it's relatable.
And it's like, shit, because my experience of being in addiction, it feels very lonely, it's very isolating. It's not a team sport. It was at the beginning. It was all shits and giggles, and we were down the pub clubbing and all that kind of stuff. But you fast forward, and addiction's progressive. And I find myself, you know, in my house at the time, curtains shut, window twitching, you know, looking out, who's there? I can hear noises at 4 o'clock in the morning. Paranoid. There's no fun in that. So that's what took me into rehab. But I must say, the 4 months I was there were a game changer, right? They were the best 4 months I've ever had. And I got kids and all of that, and I've enjoyed all the experiences of watching them being born. Although my wife might say I wasn't present on a couple of occasions. In the room, but not there mentally, you know. She found me in the toilet vaping one time. But anyway,
we need to come back to that as well.
Yeah.
Come back to that.
So it's like having that experience, because it was the first time I'd actually stopped. It was the first time I'd actually stopped and focused on me.
Someone lifted you up off the treadmill and give you feet chance to stop spinning.
Yeah. And being able to not worry about bills, all the stress, everything that I'd left behind for the first time in my life. Because before I went to rehab, I was constantly running, just petrified, full of fear about stopping and things catching up with me and me not being able to deal with it.
Yeah, you know, I think as ADHDers as well, we can get quite overwhelmed, can't we? And if you're not careful, the noise overtakes, doesn't it?
I was self-medicating, and that's the whole thing. I needed to shut the committee in my head. Yeah. And the way that I did that was drinking and using.
Yeah. And stimulants, obviously, for an ADHD brain, kind of shut the noise, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's why typically ADHDers head towards cocaine and other stimulants.
Yeah, quite true. So if you look at a lot of the medication, not all of it, but a lot of the medication is a stimulant-based medication, because it has a calming effect on an ADHD brain, where it just slows down the dopamine receptors, so we're not constantly thrill seeking, pleasure seeking, and everything else. I remember the first time I took my ADHD medication, I drove to work without texting, WhatsApp, phoning anybody, and no music on.
Clipping a curb,
I just
looking at something over there in the bush. Yeah.
I even drove on the right side of the road.
Yeah.
I got to work in one piece. And
you have people in your car and they're like, whoa, and you're just looking out the window thinking, what?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If I won't say that. But it's all that kind of stuff, isn't it? So for me, that was an incredible experience. Just going back to the rehab one, it's a thing that changed my life massively, and I'm so grateful to my dad for giving me that opportunity and seeing me and recognising that I needed help at that point, because I didn't know myself really. It wasn't until I got there that I was able to breathe and exhale and go, oh, right, I'm meant to be here. This is where I'm meant to be.
And what's frightening, Jonathan, as well, is the amount of people I think of who might be out there whose parents just shut the door and give up on them. So
yeah,
I'm thankful to your father as well for doing that for you.
Thank you. And it was difficult, and I appreciate that, I really do. And it was difficult growing up because my mum was an alcoholic. So I grew up in an alcoholic house, and I used to go home from school and I find my mum on the floor passed out. She banged her head, and I couldn't understand why she would put a glass of gin and tonic in the cupboard on a Sunday, when I was like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I couldn't quite understand why she would put it in a cupboard. So there were lots of things happening. And
you're going to have to dig it. So she'd make a drink in a glass?
Yeah, and she'd put it in the cupboard so people couldn't see it.
Ah, right.
But obviously we could. And we watched her take it out and drink it and things like that. And there were many a time that things happen, and watching my dad carry her out of dinner parties because she was too drunk to walk, and it was really horrific. But
I appreciate you sharing that, buddy. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, which is we are all a product of our upbringing, and it's only us who can choose to change the mould. And I'm a real advocate for that.
Yeah.
And I had to unpack a lot from my childhood and go, actually, I'm going to leave that where it belongs, and I'm going to take these bits and try to be a better man.
Yeah.
Really. And I think as parents, it's up to us to pass the baton. So we run as far as we can, get the baton as far as we can, and pass it on, and hope our kids just do a little bit better than we did, and it continues.
Well, that's all you can really hope for, isn't it, and strive for. And I would agree that the environment that we grow up in has a significant part in how our life develops and progresses. And if you are, as I am, predisposed to sort of that genetics of addiction, then it's going to be a little bit more likely that I'm going to start using and self-medicating, which is exactly what I did. Because I was very angry. I was frustrated. I couldn't understand what was going on. And then, I found alcohol and smoking dope and stuff like that when I got to school, and I was knocking around with other kids and, older
exactly
kids who weren't from my school and all of that kind of stuff. And this
Did your circles just... So I found in school, my circle would change every 6 months, and it just progressively get worse.
Yeah.
And maybe it was a dopamine hit, but I found myself surrounded by these guys who were just, only going one way. And I'll never forget, my dad sat me down, and I'd got myself in some bother, and it was a few days before Christmas, and he sat me down in our spare. We had like a front room. That's maybe a dining room, but it's too small. And I was kind of sat in there in that, fuck, have I done this? I can't believe what I've done type thing, and how the fuck am I going to get out of this? And he came in and he sat me down and he said, you know what, Kieran? He said, you're going to ruin Christmas. He said, they're going to come and knock on that door Christmas Day, the police. He said, they're going to arrest you in front of your mum and take you away on Christmas Day. And he said, do you want your mum to see that? I was like, not really.
No.
He says, you've got two choices, mate. He says, you either take yourself down there or I'll take you down to the police station. And he took me down to the police station, and we got to the front door and he's like, come here. And he grabs the scruff of my neck, pulls my top up really tight. He's like, you ready? I'm like, yeah. And he boots the door up and he goes, right, come in here. And he's acting really aggressive. And he's like, stand there. And he stands me at the front and the police are talking to me. They sit me in a room. They have a little chat with my dad and they come in and say, you're in enough trouble, mate. Piss off.
Wow.
And he took me home. And this was a pivotal point in my life, this. He took me home and he said, you're going to end up dead or in prison. And he said, I don't want to see either.
No.
And I remember sitting there thinking, he's right. And I was just about to leave school, and I thought something needs to change. And I'm really grateful actually for being quite introspective on that. And my dad being, I give my dad every reason to turn his back. And I think it's really important for parents of ADHD kids just to not give up and realise, like you said, now people understand. They just thought I was a bad lad.
Yeah.
Or he's just a knob.
Yeah, but I think, I appreciate you sharing that with me, and it gives some context, doesn't it, to how we get to where we are today. And I, the information wasn't there back then.
It wasn't known, was it?
But you're a bit younger than me. But
Jonathan, sorry to jump in on that. My mum used to take me to the doctors and say, he's not right.
Yeah.
He's odd. You know what I mean? He's not normal.
But the doctor
she told me that. And she would go, there's not wrong with him. She's like, he only eats peas and mash. He won't eat what else. He doesn't say a word. He won't speak to anybody. We'd walk in a room and I'd hide behind my mum.
Really?
Yeah. And I was just a nervous wreck. I was basically mute as a child.
So what age did you find your voice?
I remember this moment distinctly, right? And I'm sorry, obviously, I prefer it to be conversational, but... and it's so vivid. And sorry, because I'm a storyteller, I'm ADHD, right? So,
of course.
And like my dad was like my idol, right? Growing up. And we moved house. And my dad was going through a tough time. So I'm pretty sure I'm 100% certain my dad's neurospicy in some way.
Yeah.
Just what he doesn't want to know is like, I'm too far gone in life. Leave me be. So I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
But his mum was his rock. And his mum was neurospicy. And she went through, when they used to electrocute people and stuff like that in those homes that they made. So she went through all that and he witnessed it. So obviously he was very protective of his mum, but she was also his rock. She passed away when I was about 11. And my dad just hit a wall, went through his midlife crisis. And we moved house and my dad was really struggling. And, he was like my go-to for comfort. And whilst we were moving house, he was really stressed. And I'll never forget, there was this kid on the street on his bike and he was watching us move. And I'm going, Dad, and I'm asking him stuff. And he's like, will you just go play with that kid there? And I was like, no, he's a bad lad, Dad. And he went, just fuck off and go play with him. So I'm like, right. So anyways, I go over and we talk. And he's like, right, you're with me now. And me and this lad, within 6 months he said to me, have you ever been in a fight? I was like, no. He's like, right, we're going to organise you a fight. We're going to get you fighting. You need to toughen up. So he starts beating me up and stuff, getting me ready for these fights. And we'd organise fights. There was a triangle of grass at the end of our street. Yeah. We'd organise fights there. So he roughed me up that way. But then I started to like it, which is weird. I know, but I realised later, someone told me that ADHDers or neuro-D people are typically better at hand-to-hand combat. So there we go. It's a skill that came out of nowhere.
Wow. Something you still do?
I love boxing when I can, but my parents wouldn't let me do it as a teen because it was like, oh, we're not having a son with a head with no brains in it. But I did it for pleasure.
Yeah.
I never competed. I'm not that into it, but I do enjoy the training. Yeah. I enjoy the difficultness of it. And he got me smoking. Bear in mind I was 11. Drinking. So on a Friday night, we were setting fires and drinking.
Was this kid older than you then?
Yeah. I think he was about 14.
Right.
So we'd be drinking cans, setting fires. And we once set a fire in this little garage. Thought we'd kicked it out. And this whole garage set on fire. Like old council estates where there was multiple garages. Yeah. It lit all the garages up. And then it charcoaled my neighbour's house. So my neighbour's house was black. And we came back we'd walked off to the local park, to have a little cigarette and, cause some ruckus and come back and there was the fire service and the police and our neighbours going, there they are.
They're there. Yeah. Oh.
So that was a turning point in my life where I just went absolutely off the rails. And then I think that was just at the end of year 6. And then I joined high school, and I was kind of tainted at that point. And I was just gobby. I had a real big mouth on me. And just used to do some mad stuff. And people would say, why do you do that? And I'm like, I cannot tell you why I just did that. For instance, I walked into my form. You know, you have a form at the beginning of high school, and you walk in and sign in. And I'll never forget my form tutor had this huge, juicy orange on his desk. I just walked in and looked at it and thought, I grabbed it, smacked it on the ceiling. It burst and covered us both in orange juice. And he just stood there and went, what the fuck? And I was like, I don't know. And he just went, just fuck off, will you? I was like, yeah, fair, I will do.
It's a good start. It's an icebreaker, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'd known him a bit then, but I just saw it under this impulse. And he used to act on impulse a lot.
Yes.
So, you know, like in science and technology and stuff, I'd make projectiles and injure children. And
Well, that is a trait of ADHD, isn't it?
Yeah.
The impulsivity.
Yeah.
I can't not do that. It's in my head. I'm going to do it and then go, shit, I don't know why I've done that.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, and we've touched on it, is that lack of understanding. Once you understand it, you can catch the thoughts and go, well, that's a silly thought. But until you get to that point, you do things and you're like, why the fuck did I do that?
He was described to me as having a Ferrari brain with bicycle brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, at one point in my life, just zero brakes.
Well, we might have no brakes.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. But that's what it is until we hit the wall.
Yeah.
Crash and burn. And
there's a song about a Porsche with no brakes somewhere.
Sure there is. There will be, won't there?
Yeah.
But that's what happens though, you know, and people as we get older, and for a lot of people who are not diagnosed, but perhaps should consider it, entrepreneurs, business owners, for example, find themselves burning out, and they're not entirely sure why. You know, because it's a mental burnout. It's not physical burnout. It's a mental burnout. It can also be a spiritual burnout. And what I mean by that is it's like a disconnection with self.
Yeah, my batteries hit a wall now, and I understand it now. And I go, that's it. My batteries are done. I need to hide.
But if you were able to, on your way to that battery burnout, notice certain touch points so you could avoid the over the cliff moment, well, that would be better for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd say most, as a coming from someone who's professionally in that field, I'm assuming that is the right answer. For me personally, I've almost got to a point where I'm like, I'm going to go at 100 miles an hour. I'm going to cover as much ground as I can. And when I get to the tipping point, and I know I'm there, I just stop and I rest and I lean into my family and I cut down stimulation wherever I can, you know.
But we create our own rhythm and our own coping mechanisms and our own strategies at masking. And whilst that is your method and it seems that it works for you, or it certainly feels like it works for you, I'd question whether it actually does.
I mean, I do have a really nice sleep after.
I'm sure.
And a good rest and lounge around a bit. And
but that's a bit like somebody saying to me, well, I only have one blowout a month and I get absolutely smashed and have 2 days off, and that's cool. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how does that work?
I don't actually drink, though, just for the record.
No,
I cut out booze because that used to be the case.
Of course.
That used to be the case. I'd have a massive blowout. And I hope if there's anyone listening to this and they're thinking, oh my God, that's me, obviously listen till the end and we'll talk about how you can help them, Jonathan.
Yeah. But we only know what we know, don't we?
Yeah.
And this is the point of it. We only know what we know. And what we're very good at, particularly as we get, and you've mentioned your father, you know, he said, I'm too old in life. I'm not even going to look at that now. Right. There's no point. And I never say never. You know, why would you not? You know, and I'm not singling your father out, by the way. I'm just saying.
No, I think you're right.
There are a lot of people who, so for me, I got diagnosed initially when I was 41, 42.
I think I was 33.
Yeah. Well, mine was an unofficial diagnosis. It was diagnosed by a psychiatrist who said to me, I asked him, I said, look, I'm thinking of getting an ADHD assessment. And he said, right, why? And I said, because I think I've got ADHD. And he went, you barn door ADHD. So unless you want to get medication, I wouldn't suggest getting an assessment. So I thought...
Just to touch on that, right? He's like, it's obvious you've got ADHD. When I started telling people, I think I've got ADHD, they're like, oh, no, really? I'm like, yeah, but ADHD are blissfully unaware.
100%.
Blissfully unaware that they have ADHD and the traits are all there. And yet no one around them ever wants to be the one to say, I think you might have ADHD.
Well, this is the thing, you see, and that's why the awareness and education is very important. But at that point in my life, what I was experiencing a lot of, and I now know it as rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is that I was experiencing lots of things on a very deep emotional level. And what I mean by that is that I was easily upset, even though I wouldn't show it. I was easily disturbed by what somebody said or what I perceived they thought of me, right, if I'd have done something wrong. Yeah. So here I am in a business and I want to demonstrate to this guy that I am the bollocks, right? I am numero uno and I can do anything you chuck at me, right? Anything, I'll get it done. Whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, I'll nail it. And I'll still be there in the morning before everybody else. I'm just going to show you how good I am. Like I had something to prove. And I thought that was drive and ambition, which there was a smattering of that, don't get me wrong. But what that was a deep fear of rejection. And I could not cope with that. Therefore, I would always go an extra 10 miles, right, just to prove a point at my peril. So who suffered from it? My wife, my kids, me. Did they suffer? No, they benefited. They benefited from my ADHD, my predisposition. And therefore, we've got to be so careful around this stuff because people, unfortunately, and they don't understand this necessarily, but are being used. Their talents and their mental health is being used and manipulated against them for profit. And that's where we've got to be like very, very careful. Because you look at, right, I've been in sales all my life. I left school at 16 with no GCSEs and I got a job in sales. And I was good at it. Really good at it.
Gift of the gab, they used to call it.
I got the gift of the gab. My father used to say to me, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, you should use them in that proportion, but I couldn't. It's like I've got 2 mouths and 1 ear. Right? And he told me every good salesman listens.
It's true. Was your father a salesman?
He was.
Nice.
He was. So I learned a lot from him. But the thing is like being in sales and then running and being in sales environments, a lot of people with ADHD are attracted to those environments because they're fast-paced, commission-based, sales, drinking culture, party culture is all good. Like my sales manager used to say to me, at the end of the month, he knew that I'd pull it out of the bag and go, like, we need $7,000 this month to hit target. Can you find it? And I'd be like, of course I can, boss. Because unbeknown to me, at 22, I've still got all this going on, right? And I just wanted to prove and demonstrate to him that I could do it and that I am the best and that I could not go to him with that for fear of that rejection. So from a very early on in my career, unbeknown to me and unbeknown to them, right, I was being used and my ADHD was being manipulated, right, to gain profit because they knew I'd go out and I was like a dog with a bone.
Yeah, I think as well, it comes down to intention, doesn't it? They just probably thought this Jonathan kid's is bringing it home.
No, 100%. They're not like, oh, he's got ADHD, let's grind him out. It wasn't that. I put myself in that position. I'm not speaking ill of anybody here that managed me in my career. I'm saying that because of my lack of knowledge and understanding of self, right? I kept putting myself in these situations because I didn't know what it was, and I was hurting and it was painful and I didn't like it, but I kept doing it because I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
So it's that definition of insanity, repeating the same thing again and again and again and again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
And the different result never came.
No, and I think for me, getting the diagnosis was, I almost, I wanted to grow my business, and I knew I needed to become the man I needed to be to have the business I wanted to have. And I was working with a coach at the time, and he was like, why don't you get diagnosis for ADHD? Because I figured out that all the things I didn't like about myself were ADHD traits. And I did my Porter's 5 Forces 12 months ago or something. And a lot of them were around structure, focus, order. Now, none of them match an ADHD brain, and I'm not medicated. Personally, I've worked on it so much and worked on my traits that I've managed to almost put them in a box and become the man I needed to be. And I think perhaps you would have, back then, if you'd have known what ADHD was and those traits, you'd have maybe been able to harness it a bit better. Because for me, the understanding, because I used to do the same, I was such a hard worker. I'd work 7 days a week. I run my own business from 21 to 26, 27. And that business I worked 7 days a week, but then the problem was I'd made the business revolve around me. So the minute I wanted to have a day off, because it was built on me working so damn hard, I had to hire 3 sales guys to get the same level of revenue that I was doing on my own, which wasn't sustainable.
No.
And eventually that company went pop.
Yeah.
And then I went into sales, and I went into car sales. I was top salesman in the group from month 1 to month 6, and I left. Didn't like the culture. And then I went to corporate sales, and I wasn't top salesman in the group because it was a large group and there's some people there who'd been doing it a long time. And sometimes your face just had to fit. And I was ground out, if you like. And, you know, I made the mistake. My manager said to me, he said, what do you want to achieve? And I said, well, do you know what? I can earn really good money here. I'll do 20 years here. I'd like to get to director, and I'll use the cash to build a property portfolio. Happy days. Retire in 20 years. And he sat back in his chair and just scowled at me. And I'm thinking, oh shit, what have I said here? Like what? And I wish I'd read the 48 Laws of Power before going into employment, because one of them basically says you need to kiss your manager's ass. Now for me that was absolutely not in my blood, and I'd never do it. But had I read the 48 Laws of Power prior, I might have done it.
Well, you might have done, but that's that. You work smarter, not harder sometimes, isn't it? Which is quite difficult for us to get. Because for me, and I can only speak for me, it's like I'm quite non-compliant. You know, I've got an issue with authority. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like being managed. And that's, you know, I found myself working for myself for quite a long time now, because whilst I crave structure, I struggle in it.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that, that's the one thing I've never got with ADHD is like, we want formation, we want structure. It's good for us, but then the minute we find ourselves in it, like, I need to break this up. I need to...
Yeah, totally. But it's because for me, I think there's, you know, because I look at it and go, well, I could do it better, I could do it differently, I'd do it better and I'd do this. If I dismantle the current structure and rebuild the structure, it'll be better than it's ever been. But the problem is, I'll only build 3/4 of the structure and then get bored. And I go, over to you, and they're like, what's he done here then? And I just leave a trail of disaster behind me, and I'm on to the next thing, and I don't look back. And I'm on to the next thing, and I don't look back. And this is the issue, is that, and again, like you, doing a lot of work on myself, is that I've got to start evaluating. You said earlier about, you know, we learn from our mistakes, and yes, we do. But sometimes we need to repeat them several times in order for us to actually, for it to sink in. Well, I certainly do. But what I have to do is now do things differently, because my business has grown from me doing what I want when I want to now we've just won a huge NHS contract that requires a very diligent strategy, structure, process, reporting, compliance, governance, and all of that, which scares the shit out of me.
You've already lost me, yeah.
Yeah, it scares the shit out of me. But what I've had to do is I've had to switch on another part of me to get into the details, because I'm not a details man. I'm not a details man, but I've had to become one. And what I've been really fortunate in being able to attract is talent into the business. I've got some incredible people in the business, right? And they do the things that I'm not good at. And that took a lot for me to go, because I think I'm good at everything, but I know I'm not. But holding my hand up and saying, I'm not good at that, and I need somebody who is.
Yeah, do you know, did you find, Jonathan, as well, when you, I don't know how you went around the recruitment, but when I was building my leadership team and figuring out what I'm not good at and what areas I need to fill, because that's a great leader, isn't it, right? A great leader goes, I'm good at this, and then I'm going to hire for everything else and make sure those people are happy. I think being open and honest with people and saying, I'm not good at this, and I need you to do it, almost empowers them a little bit, and it makes them, and you said you got good talent, it probably helped them want to come work for you, because they're like, great, this guy's not going to be looking over my shoulder and watching everything I'm doing. He's going to give me the freedom I need to get on and do the job.
Yeah, but there's a balance with that as well, isn't there? There's a balance with that, and where we can't be neglectful in our duties as a founder, owner, manager. We have to find the right balance with the right people in terms of how much time and energy we put into supporting them and managing them and understanding what they're actually doing and not meddling.
Yeah.
Right? Being able.
Every time you do meddle a little bit, you think, and it always goes wrong, doesn't it? You think, why did I do that?
Well, why do I do that? But you know, as my chief exec, as my chairman tells me, you know, I've got to be honing and refining the process, right? And, you know, we're a month into this contract and I already want to be 6 months, 9 months into it in terms of process, numbers and everything like that. And I can apply sometimes quite a lot of pressure to the team in order for that to be done and delivered. But I have to remind myself, not everybody thinks like me. Not everybody behaves like me, works like me.
I think that, I personally believe that pressure and that drive is a godsend. And I think you find your people who can work under pressure and you'll make magic happen, personally. I veered off a bit, Jonathan, forgive me, because we never got to, and I'm going to go way back here, typical ADHD, I'm going to jump around a little.
Yeah.
We never finished off, and I want you to have your say, buddy, on you went to rehab, and obviously we've got back into professional mode, haven't we? And I think if someone's listening to this and is going through struggles, I want them to at least hear how you got through them, buddy, because I think it's an amazing story. And I'm almost sorry you had to go through it, to be honest with you. And I think people coming through now probably won't realise how lucky they are to be able to have services like yours, and get through them.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. I think going back to where we sort of deviated.
Jumped off, apologies.
I went to rehab, had an incredible time there, met some phenomenal people. You know, it was incredible. And then I came back to the UK, and I remember coming into Manchester thinking, shit.
I could see you were anxious,
I was anxious. I thought, because what had happened was I'd done a lot of work on myself, and we were like spiritual, doing yoga, we were doing massage, we were doing therapy. I was really delving deep into my inner child and inner workings and childhood and all of those things that I'd found really difficult and had just stuffed in a box, and the only way they came out was sideways, right? Resentful, angry, frustrated, hard done to. Everything was an injustice, right? So unpacking some of that, and you can only unpack so much in 4 months. I'm still unpacking some of that now, 20 years later, by the way. But for me, it was like coming back to the UK, and what I'd realised is that I'd changed. Other people hadn't. And they didn't need to, necessarily.
Do you mean the people around you?
Family.
That you were still the same Jonathan that left 4 months prior?
They thought I was the same Jonathan, but I wasn't. And I went back to live with my dad and my stepmom at the time, and I stayed with them because I didn't have a property. I didn't have anything. I left with bags and the only clothes. That was it. And I came back and I stayed with them, and I was with them for a couple of months, and it got to the point where it was becoming quite challenging being in that environment because I changed so much.
You'd grown.
So I had to leave that property, and I had to go and register myself as homeless because I didn't have any money or anywhere to go. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I had nothing. I had to go and register myself at homeless and got a flat on the council. And
that's lucky these days, isn't it?
yeah, well, the thing, but this is, so I'll tell you this, and I'm only telling you this just because it puts things in context. I went to have a look around a couple of council houses, and I'm like, nah. Council flats, nah. I then did a deal with a private landlord who just built some new apartments in a beautiful part of town. And I managed to do a deal where I got the benefits to pay the private landlord my money, and he'd never done it before. And I'm in this spangly, brand new 1-bed apartment in a really beautiful place of town. And it was technically a council flat.
That's typical. That's an ADHD though, isn't it? We find a way.
100%.
Yeah,
I thought, I want that. I want that one.
How do I get it? Yeah.
I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I was able to sort of rebuild from that base. I felt comfortable. I felt safe. You know, my son could come over, and it was, you know, it was awesome. Excuse me. So my jobs were at that point valeting cars, washing cars. I'd bought some old tools and a £300 Peugeot, and I cut grass and I trimmed hedges. And I got an opportunity then to go and do a kitchen, lay some laminate. And I started doing jobs I'd never done before, but it went okay. But then I got bored. All right. By the way, now I'm not drinking. I'm not taking anything. I'm clean and sober. I'm going to recovery meetings every day. I'm living in them. But I'm also like, where do we go from here? So then I got some money together. My dad lent me some money, and I got myself a car and became a chauffeur. All right. So I was doing airport runs. I was got my business head on, and I'm you know, I'm getting a few little deals here and there, and I'm taking people from Sheffield to Manchester, Leeds, Bradford, Heathrow once or twice, and thinking this is all right. I then started doing a bit of business development around this. I go and get a contact in HSBC because their head office was in Sheffield, data centre. Knocked on the door, pitched. They gave me some work, right? But that work grew, right? And within 4 months, I've got 7 drivers. So there's me pottering about. I've got all these other guys running around doing all these jobs, and then all of a sudden, HSBC cut all their external spending and all of this kind of stuff, and that just fell on its arse and died a death, that business. So I thought, what am I going to do now? So I thought, I'm going to set up a sales agency, a telesales agency, and that's what I did. Got some investment. Set up an office, and we were doing cold calling, appointment setting, because my background previously was in the IT and tech space.
Can I just jump in here as well, Jonathan, right? 'Cause the reason I love this, and this is where my life changed, luckily for me early on, where you've now channeled here ADHD energy.
Yeah.
So you either start being a wrong un and, you know, getting into criminality, drugs, drink, all that stuff, and you channel it and you go all in, don't you?
Yeah.
Or you find something really fucking difficult to do.
Yeah.
Which is run a business. And straight away you're in it, and it's keeping you occupied and busy.
Yeah.
And that's why most ADHDers are entrepreneurs, right?
Well,
I'm sorry, please carry on.
No, it's true. It's true. And so I set up the sales agency, and it was going all right. I've recruited a couple of staff. We got contracts with Cisco, HP. We got some like decent little gigs. But here's where life started getting difficult again. So my wife and I had had another baby and got married, set up this business. You know, everything was going all right. But I'd stopped doing some of the core fundamental things I needed to do to keep myself well, mentally, physically, spiritually. Man, right?
Yeah. Sorry, because I can just... sorry.
What do I do? I pick up a drink.
Yeah.
I pick up a drink. And this is the power of this stuff, right? When I met my wife, I told her that I couldn't go anywhere near alcohol or food with alcohol in it. I'd never frequent. I'd just absolutely not. you know, because I said I break out in handcuffs.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Fast forward a few years, I'm convincing her that I'm all right and I can do controlled drinking. I'll be okay. I can just control it. I'll have a couple of beers. It'll be fine. And within a month, I'm at the pub every night and I'm back on it and I'm getting smashed, right? And I remember one day, I'm like, I'm going to the pub, and I'm physically moved my wife out the way, climbed over my kids to get in my car and go to the pub. And I got to the pub and I was angry with my wife and my children that they would not let me go. But I got there and I was there and I drank and I drank and I drank. And I got home and we had an almighty row. And it's just, but that's just then what happened. So I completely lost myself. I'm trying to run a business. I got a load of investment in it and I'm getting pissed.
On the drink. Are you still with your wife now, Jonathan?
Yeah.
She stood by you through all this?
Just.
Great woman.
4 years that was 4 years relapse. 4 years relapse. And in that time and right at the end, in the last in the last 6 months, I lost my business. I lost my house. I nearly lost my marriage. I get sober, and within the first 6 months of sobriety, I lose my mum. She dies of alcoholism.
Sorry to hear that, mate.
Yeah, well, in her death, she gave me the greatest gift. That if I carried on drinking, that's what happened to me.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. So I'm grateful to her for that. She brought me into this world and she gave me the greatest gift when she departed. And, you know, I'll hold that dearly. But so then I've gone again. I'm done. I've got no money. I've got nothing. My wife and I we're back in a little 2 up, 2 down. I've got 3 kids, 4 kids at the weekend. I've not got a job. She's not got a job. We're sharing a little VW up, 75 quid a month there. And I'm like, she's like, what are you going to do? Because we've got nothing.
She's got faith in you, though.
And I'm like, I'm going to train as a sober coach and I'm going to get into this industry. And she's like, all right, let's do it. So I did. And I got a job and I'd drive down to London in this little VW, 1 litre.
I was going to say, red line.
You know, all the way down to London. Yeah. And I get there and I
it's
go.
Like a tin can, isn't it? Yeah.
Got a job with this guy and he was paying me 1,500 quid a month. 1,500 quid a month. And I've not been on
as a coach, as a mentor.
No. So I'd trained as a coach, and then he was the trainer, and I said, listen, why don't you employ me in your business because I can do sales and I'll generate this and do this. And he was like, go on, I'll give you a shot.
Nice.
But I'd not been on 1,500 quid a month since I was 18. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I've got to feed. I've got 3 mouths to feed, kids. Oh, but it was tough. But I did it. And then I was with this guy and I was in the training business and I was helping him with coaching and all this kind of stuff. And then I went to an event and I got headhunted by a guy who was setting up a clinic in Mayfair, and he says, look, come and see me. So I went to see him. He gave me a job. He gave me a company car, gave me a great salary, and I did 2 years with him in Mayfair. And that's where I learned about rehab, one-to-one rehab. So very specific, very niche, one-to-one stuff, not multi-occupancy like the Priory and places like that. This is one-to-one for ultra high net worth clients. So I did 2 years there, but I was away from home. Just had another baby and I'm away. I'm not here. It was taking its toll.
You did well to stay, obviously, down in London. You know, it's a place where if you're not careful, there's just a pub on every corner, isn't there?
Well, but the thing is as well, I'll tell you this now, is like, since I came back into recovery, I worked really, really hard and I continue to work really, really hard in it. And since doing that, I've been placing a neutrality around booze and gear. You could bring out Pablo Escobar's private stash, the finest whiskies now. I would have no interest in it. No interest at all.
Do you find though as well, there's a frightening amount of this population sniff cocaine?
Yeah.
I would put it down into adulthood. Possibly 70% of people sniff cocaine.
I think there's a large proportion of people that do. It seems to be like it's just the thing.
It's frightening, really, to be honest with you. But And I'm glad you got to that point, because for me now, like the thought of even being drunk just gives me a headache.
Well, I mean, I celebrated my 50th birthday at the beginning of June, and I had a party, and I watched people get drunk. And whilst that's not my business, it's their business, I find it quite uncomfortable at times, because I don't want to be around people who are pissed. Because what happens, and my observation is that when somebody drinks, and the more drunk they get, the closer they want to get to you.
Yeah, and
it's like the proximity. Yeah, they've got to get really close. It's like as if I can't. They have to speak louder and get closer, and I just don't like it.
Yeah,
and I don't want to be. You know what I mean? I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So I'm off. But basically that's what happened. And then on the back of that, I came up to Cheshire, did 3 years with a psychiatrist, set up a rehab for him, clinic, and thought I'm gonna have a go at it myself. Did it myself, and here I am now. You know, living the dream.
I love it as an ADHD though, right? 'Cause I think ADHDers always get to a point where like, right, I've completed this quest now. Like, what's next? And you can kind of see it, how you've you know, it just seemed to happen from one thing to the other.
Well, it had to. I mean, the thing that I've got to be doing now, Kieran, is just dialing in and focusing on what needs to happen. Because the opportunity I've got is a life-changing opportunity in front of me.
Yeah,
and my chairman constantly, as I sit and I go, right, I've got an idea, we can do this. And he'll go, great idea, but not now. And I go, right, but what about this? He'll go, great idea, but not now. And he'll bring me back. This is what you need to be doing right now. And it might be mundane, it might be boring, but tough shit, you got to do it.
You got to have to get used to them.
Because you've gone out and won this, now you got to deliver it. It's on you.
You can train yourself, Jonathan, as well, mate. That will become normal for you soon. Eventually, that repetitive, well, not repetitive task, but just like not drinking. Yeah, the more you repeat it and the more you tell your flesh, this is what's going to happen, the more you will lean into it and it'll just become who you are. Like I said earlier, I've changed my Porter's 5. If you did my Porter's 5 forces 5-6 years ago, it'd have probably said distracted, you know, head in the clouds, always dreaming, always looking for the next shiny thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's focus and arrangement, and you can. I'm a big advocate for ADHD and autism are not an excuse.
Yeah.
You are still a person within those attributes. Some of the things, yes, you can't change, and you need therapy and support around it and medication if needs be. But some of it is just outright learnt behaviours. I see it in my own kids.
Sure. Yeah, no, I do get that. And look, every day's a school day.
Yeah,
you know,
you're demonstrating it now, mate.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind me sharing as well, like, and I'm assuming like the point you lost everything and you had to go again was probably a point where you know, I don't know about you, but I only learned the hard way. And we mentioned this earlier. The only way we seem to learn is after repetitive smacks in the face. We start to think, you know, that hurts. Why do I keep doing it? And my first business failed and I lost everything. I was the same. Like, you know, my wife had just had our third child. We had bailiffs knocking at the door. I used to have to huddle the kids at the front door with my wife, and I would stand and face the bailiffs. She would unlock the door and jump in with the kids. I would jump in the house backwards and shut the door and lock it. So obviously if they had an open door, they were allowed to come in.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's an ADHD trait, and we all seem to go through it, but the only way... That was a point where I was like, right, I need to be better now. I've got no choice. And I had to go through that build for years.
Yeah. Well, what I know is that nobody's going to do this for me, this life. I've got to take responsibility and ownership for it. And I think my makeup, in the very core of my being, is relentless, is driven, is passionate, and there's a great deal of resilience there, but there's a huge emotional soft side that I keep hidden.
Yeah, like, do you think ADHDs were very empathetic, aren't we, or can be? And obviously overthink things, can be quite sensitive, but we also have, like, I think we have a superpower where we can really understand or think we understand what someone's feeling, and I see it in you. I can tell you're on, I don't even know how to describe it and articulate it properly, but you're on like that emotional spectrum where you can connect with people, which is probably why you loved doing what you do.
Yeah.
Because you sat with people one-to-one and you connected with them and you were able to unlock things that they couldn't see. I do think that comes with being a bit neurospicy. Like
I think it helps. I mean, look, in business you meet people. I think we were talking about it before we came on, and you know, how you doing? I'm fine. Everything's fine. There's no problems. Nothing to see here. Everything's cool. And I think we were talking about the Americans who actually are very open about actually, you know, struggling with their day, or they'll tell you exactly how it is. And I love that. I love that because I know where I'm at with somebody then. And being in recovery and being around other people in recovery, particularly, they're very honest, and lots of people don't like honest conversations. And I can go in hot on a conversation, and they're like, whoa, you can see them like almost recoiling because we're quintessentially British, aren't we? We don't want to
tell me you're fine.
Get
and go
involved.
away.
Yeah, tell me I'm fine. If
you tell an American you're okay, they'll go, oh, why? What's wrong?
Fine, fucking incapable of normal emotion.
Yeah, I like it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm fine. It's just a barrier.
Yeah.
Right. If somebody says to you, how you doing? You know, I'm really struggling today. I've had a bit of a barney with the missus. The dog was really pissing me off. One of the kids couldn't find his uniform, found it really difficult getting him to school. He was crying at the gate, and this is all before 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So now, do you know what? I'm knackered.
Yeah.
And
I'm emotionally unstable
right
right now.
I'm knackered. I need a coffee, and you're not getting me one.
Yeah.
To sort it, you know. But people don't like that. But the thing is, if I can be like that, because this is about carrying that energy, isn't it? And that openness, you know, and speaking from the heart, and if I can be that, I'm setting a tone, I'm setting a standard. It's like, it's all right to be like that.
Completely agree.
It's cool to be like that. If somebody says to me, I'm fine, I'm going, fuck off.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Do you know, people say to me, so I'm very honest, right? When I lost my business and I lost everything, it was like the most humbling experience ever.
Yeah.
And I just stopped really like holding on to any pretense. I wasn't trying to be anything to anyone. I just wanted to be a good husband and a good dad, and that was it. I realised that was all that really mattered. And I'm just unapologetically honest. And the amount of people who say to me, you're a breath of fresh air, or, you know, something along those lines, like, oh, you know, how refreshing to speak to someone who's just so honest. Or someone asked me for some feedback the other day and said, we want to ask you because we know you'll be honest. And it's like, why is that not normal?
I think sometimes people just find it easiest to be dishonest than get into a conversation that might require them to be honest and look inside.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to look for external validation rather than in internal stability, and looking at how we can regulate our own emotions. We'll look externally for somebody to externally regulate them, or drink or drugs or whatever it might be. Gives an external stimuli rather than internal stimuli. And actually getting comfortable in your own skin, which clearly you are now.
100%, yeah. Right? I said this to my wife the other day, actually. It was weird. I went to an event that I'd previously attended a few years ago. And when I went a few years ago, I dressed up really smart. I really wanted to make an impression, all that stuff. And I went this time, and I was just very grateful for being there. But I was just cool as a cucumber. I was just happy to be there. It flowed, had really nice conversations. You know, I dressed how I felt comfortable, and I just kind of felt like a different person, you know?
I love that. You see, I absolutely love that. And it's great that, you know, we talk about being comfortable in our own skin, and that takes a lot. That can take time. It takes time. Some people are just naturally comfortable in their own skin.
It took time for me. It took years.
I'm not, and I wasn't. And for years, it was all about, well, what are they going to think? You know, oh, God, I've over-engineered this conversation in my head. I've over-engineered how I need to show up and what I need to be like and how I need to dress and all that jazz.
Thought about 100 outcomes,
100%. I thought about 100 outfits. And it's like, it's all of that stuff. And it's like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? I remember my therapist in rehab, he said to me, how you doing today? And I go, they always call me Johnny. They always call me Johnny. I go like, how you doing today, Johnny? And I'm like, you know, and he's like, well, what's the worst thing can happen? He said, because I tell you for what, the sky's not going to fall in on you today. I'm like, oh.
So I have these conversations with my kids, right? So when they've been anxious, I'm like, I get them to look me in the eye, and I'm like, are you going to die?
Yeah.
Because if the answer's yes, run. If the answer's no, stop worrying about him. And rightly or wrongly, that might be a little bit savage, but you know, you can see him kind of thinking, well, actually, I'm not going to die. So,
how bad is it?
Yeah.
How bad is it? My wife has been incredible for me. I mean,
I wanted to touch on that. Thank you for bringing that up, because I was thinking there's something I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because my wife's my rock, and she's been a firm foot up my backside, and also been there for me in these points as your wife has been. So I wanted to touch on that. Sorry, I just wanted to give Emily a shout out.
No, it's okay. I think that...
Shout out to my wife.
Well, good for you. Shout out to Kieran's wife. You're incredible. An incredible woman.
Yeah, she is.
So I think for me, it's, I married the right woman.
Yeah.
I don't always think that. I don't always agree with that. But my wife is incredible. She's a therapist. And recently trained and worked really, really hard to get to where she is, and also an incredible mother, raising the kids and just doing a fabulous job. And
she keeps them safe and protected.
Well,
from
she does
emotions.
things I cannot do.
Yeah,
she's got something that I have not got and would love to have, but haven't. So I've got to follow her lead, right, with how we parent the kids, because I'm not that good at it.
You bring the fun. You bring the...
Well, I try.
And the love and the cuddles.
I can also blend... Yeah, I try. I mean, I'm not always shits and giggles. I mean, sometimes I can be a right miserable git. But most of the time, I'm all right. But the things... So for example, I can come home from work and she could tell me about your day. And I'm holding it back because I don't really want to tell her. But I tell her because I know she's going to give me some truth. She's going to give me some facts and some cold, hard truth, right? And it hurts.
You're trying to avoid, yeah.
And it hurts. And I'm like, no. But I'm like, you're right. You're so right.
She's there just polishing the shotgun, waiting for you to bring her
100%.
some cartridges.
100%. I lay it on the table. And she'll go, can I be honest? And I go, yeah. And she'll go, this, and this. And I'm going, why have you made that sound so easy? And I'm going to have to take a minute to get my head around this, because I want to tell you to bugger off. But you're right. She's so intuitive and so in tune with people and things and environments, and I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without her.
I was picking that up right the way through. She's been there, and if I may share as well with you, I really struggled to show affection. So when I met my wife, I was 17, and I'd been in a pub brawl, and it went wrong. And I burst out the fire exit at the side of this pub because I was getting my head stoved in. Bumped into Emily, my wife.
Yeah.
And that's how we met, right? So it's not the greatest story. And then I asked her politely for a kiss, and she said yes. And then these lads burst out of this fire exit, shouting and screaming, looking for me. So I turned around, looked at these lads, turned around. She's already on her toes, running. And luckily, I won't bore you with the full story, but I found her again and managed to make amends. It took some doing.
Great story.
But I was cold and hard nosed and blunt as a baseball bat, and I had zero emotion. It was just cold hard, no warmth about me. Which people who, if you know me now, you'd be like, no way, not a chance. And she used to say, why don't you smile for photos? I'm like, just don't smile. It's not me. That's where I was at. And I think that was a product of my upbringing. And nothing against my parents, but they, having got them to tell me about their upbringing, I understand the baton passing I was talking about earlier. Yeah. And when we were getting serious, I think I was about 18, and I'd never had a relationship before her. The minute these women said to me, I love you, it was my cue to get out. Yeah. Because that was a motive, and, we don't do emotions. And I was like, right. She was like, well, you're not going to say it back. And I was like, I'd love to say it back, but you need to understand what you're getting yourself in for. Because I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to do this, this, and this. I need to be able to go anywhere I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. And at this point, I'd been a plumber for a couple of years, and I'd met so many men who'd been in miserable relationships and told me all about the wives cheating on them with their friends and disappearing with half their wealth and all this stuff. So I was very cautious. And she said, well, I want to have a family, and I want kids, and I want this. And I never wanted kids. Obviously, I wanted my kids, but at that point, I never wanted kids. Kids just were not on the, I was just going to be some millionaire playboy. That was not my dream. If you ask my dad, I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. Yeah. And she was like, right, and that was the agreement. And I'm with her now. I'm 35 in February. Got married when we were 21. And when we had kids, I really struggled I wanted to be a good dad, but I just couldn't. I didn't know how to show them love. And for me, it was really, really hard. And I was getting overstimulated with the crying and the noises in the house and the wife being stressed and the financial burden and the having to work harder and not getting any rest. And I was really struggling. And I went to the doctors because I didn't know where do you turn, you know? And I went to the doctors and I'm like, look, I'm at home all the time. I'm always shouting. I'm always really like upset. I don't want to be that dad who's always screaming at the kids. Can you help me? Like, yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
By the time I got home, social services were there.
Oh, gosh.
So my wife's like, what the fuck's going on? I'm like, I've asked for help. So anyways, does he beat you? Does he hit the kids? And rightly so, they had to check, right?
Yeah,
at the time, it was very...
flag some safeguarding risks.
Yeah, at the time, it was very... I wasn't happy about it.
No, I can imagine.
And Emily, my wife, wasn't happy about it at all. No. She was like, he's come to you in open arms for help. And this is how you're treating him.
But this is... I appreciate you sharing that, and I think this is a very interesting point. People don't necessarily know the right places to go when they need help, and they don't necessarily know the right places to, or the right people to turn to in these situations. And GPs or general practitioners, in their very title, it's a generalism. It's not a specialism.
Yeah,
and therefore will signpost and prescribe where they can.
Yeah.
And I know
Gotta get the checklist out.
Yeah, I know some awesome GPs, but when, if you're going to somebody with some, those symptoms you were sharing and feeling, it's like, actually, there is a different way through that and a different way around this. And I think that it brings us nicely onto what people need and how people get it. Because, look, I'm in the business of helping people. Montrose is in the business of helping people and helping people's children, right? And that was all born out of a desire through my own experience to help people as early on as possible in their lives to find a solution, right? They don't need to go through 30 years of pain, 40 years of pain, 50 years of pain. There's a way through it. There's a different way. And that's where we are. And being able to help people as early on in their lives, and conversations like this hopefully will shine a bit of a light on that, is that you don't need to get to your 40s or 50s in order for you to hit a wall to get the help. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's about parents being educated, understanding, so they can intervene early. I mean, like your father intervened early with you. He saw something and thought the only way he knew at that time was, I'm going to take you by the scruff of the neck and take you down the police station. But it impacted you. It helped, right? It flicked a switch. Might have been a fear switch, I don't know what it was, but it flicked a switch and changed your path, right? And that's what parents are here and empowered to do, and teachers and all those people who are around kids who are struggling, right, for one reason or another, to be able to signpost them, get them into the right place at the right time for the right help.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, you are 15 years younger than me, but when I was at school, it was naughty kid running around with a bin on their head.
It was the same for me, mate.
Stick him in a naughty class, right? And that's that.
When I was at school, Jonathan, I had an agreement with my teachers in the end where I said to them, you leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. Yeah, you fuck with me, I'll fuck with you. That's how it was. And I was so much trouble for them, where I had parents who didn't engage school, didn't come to parents' evenings, didn't check in if I went to detentions. So they felt like they had no mechanisms. So it was an agreement where I'll just sit and stare out the window for an hour and we'll all just shake hands at the end of it and no one's going to be in any trouble. And I came out with C's and B's, which aggravated them even further.
Well done.
But yeah, you're right. And for me, I don't know how to really nail it, but I'm desperate for, when I found out what you did and I saw you were speaking at the event that you kindly invited me to come along to, I am desperate for people to find your services. I'm desperate for people to hear from people like you and me that, we've got a loving wife, we've got a loving family, we've got businesses. We are, successful people. And here behind the climb, realise that it's not a straight line, and to stop glorifying people who have done well for themselves, because it's a squiggly old line to get there. But B, identify these things and realise that there's now help out there, and it's never too late. And
100%.
If you've seen it in your kids, And obviously, if you're doing national NHS contracts, so you do. I read on the information that was kindly given to me by my team that you still work with high performers, high net worth, things like that. So will you break us down what you do and how, if someone was listening to this and any of it's related to them, how they might slot into those categories?
No, of course. Okay? Absolutely. So fundamentally, the service is self-pay, private, and it was originally designed for ultra high net worth individuals. So we have two parts of it. We have the residential retreats, which are one-to-one, which cover addiction, mental health. So we have clients who come to us and stay with us for anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks. They come to one of our properties in Derbyshire. They have live-in staff. They have their own psychiatrist, psychologist, private chef, nutritionist, meditation coach, yoga coach. So people come to us in crisis with addiction, mental health, but people also come to us for burnout. And we're doing a lot of work more recently with people, entrepreneurs, owner managers, high net worth individuals in music industry, whatever they might be, who are experiencing neuro burnout. So we do a lot of work at
music
there.
Obviously gets a lot of creatives, also has, a track record of alcoholism and drugs, doesn't it?
It sure does. And there's a direct correlation between addiction and ADHD. So, those two things go hand in hand. And that's the reason why we set up the clinic. So the other part of the business is the outpatient clinic, and that specialises in ADHD and autism. We're registered with the Care Quality Commission to deliver services for children from age 6. Okay.
Can you do the diagnosis?
We do assessment, diagnosis, and treatment. So we do every aspect of it. So treatment pathway can be medication, but treatment pathway could also be coaching, therapy, when we have art therapists, we have different types of therapists, equine therapy.
That works well.
We do some really cool stuff. Yeah.
And do you know what, Jonathan, as well, if I may jump in, obviously, I don't know if you've seen it with your children, but ADHD is hereditary. It's come through into my kids. My daughter's got ASD, ADHD, other bits and bats. The equine therapy really helped her. She's medicated now for ADHD. I was absolutely anti-medication. My relationship with drugs was not a good one, and therefore it was any form of medication was a no-go. But having medicated 2 of my children, and we're now on with medicating another one because she's now struggling, because now we've got these other 2 sorted.
Yep.
The other one stands out a bit more, the one that was maybe less of a problem.
Of course.
And I just, if people are hearing this and you're anti-meds, the results for us personally were just dumbfounded.
I think it's awesome that you can share that and you've seen that. I mean, and look, and we give choice. It's about choice. Everything I'm talking about here is self-pay, by the way. So the choices in self-pay are much greater than through what we call right to choose NHS contracts. So within that space, within the right to choose, people can go to their GP and ask for a right to choose assessment for ADHD or autism, and they can choose a private provider like Montrose for that assessment. And that again is assessment, diagnostic, screening, triage, and also treatment. But the only treatment we can provide through the NHS pathway is medication. Yeah,
typically. I think as well, I've had so many parents come to me from school and stuff that I've said, my son's doing this, my daughter's doing this, and I've just said, whatever you can do, just pay for it. Because you can go through years of hell, or you can pay for it, whichever way that happens, scraping from family. A lot of people probably don't realise, and I don't know if you help people with this, but they're actually entitled to some form of benefits if they're really struggling with a child.
You can, I mean, look, the right to choose scheme through the GP is all paid for through the NHS.
But you're looking at years, aren't you? Years and years.
No, that's a myth. So the wait times, if a person
for
got
ADHD,
referred,
this is not autism.
No. So if you went to the GP with your daughter and said, right, I want to get a right to choose referral for my daughter, and I want a combined ADHD and autism assessment, and I want to use Montrose, They send the referral, and within 13 to 18 weeks, you'd have an appointment with us.
That's insane. Do you know how it took us? 3.5 years.
Yeah, I know. I imagine. There are wait lists all around the country. Some of them are just insane.
So my daughter, my daughter was really difficult. We couldn't leave the house. She'd melt down the minute we wanted to leave the house. And I took her to A&E once. I can't remember what she'd done. She was being extremely like overstimulated, meltdown. Took her to A&E. I think she'd hurt her ankle. And this A&E doctor was looking at her, and I literally grabbed his wrist and I was like, mate, I need your help. And he was like, why? What's wrong? And I said, this kid is not right and no one will listen to me. But, I explained it, and he just said, look, mate, I can't help you. It starts with school. So I don't know how you feel about that. But I literally went into her school, and I do not condone this behaviour, right? I went into her school. I dropped her off, which was an event. So it was always an event in the morning. Walked into the head teacher's office, which she was flabbergasted. Sat down and said, I'm not leaving this office until you pick up that phone and make the necessary call to start the process. And she had two choices at that point: ring 999 or the services. And luckily, she rang for support and then kicked off the process.
That's good.
But I don't know how you feel about it, if it's still the case. But for us, we had to go through school to start. They have to do like a referral.
Well, firstly, you go to any lengths to help your kids, and you demonstrated that clearly. So good for you, and I'm pleased that the headmistress master was able to sort of initiate that process for you. So it's an interesting one, because parents, carers, school, for an autism or ADHD assessment for a child, we have to get reports from school, very specific questionnaires that get sent to Senko leads and teachers, but also interviews with parents. So most of the all of the assessments that we do for autism are in two parts. So you've got your diagnostic screening interview, which is an interview with the parents and with the child there.
I've done it 3 times now.
And then you've got your second part, which is your ADOS, which is your observational assessment. And then those two practitioners come together, create a report. So we always, the biggest issue that we have is getting the information from school. That can take a little bit of time. That's what parents need to be aware of. And
the parents need to be, I think we learned that it's the one who screamed the loudest.
Squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, love that. Keeping that one.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you've got to do it. But the thing is, as well, is like you said, I mean, ADHD, autism can be genetic. So the parents are often quite tenacious and determined to get what they need, and will go for it and go for it and go for it. So they're the parents that we want, because they're the parents that will get the information back in time. That means that we can keep within that assessment time frame, and everybody's then happy, and all we want to do, and the whole reason why I got into this business, Kieran, was to help people. And
I can see that clearly, mate, and it's great to hear.
But and I appreciate you saying that, because whilst there is such a huge need, parents are worried and concerned, and they want things to happen as quickly as possible, even though they've been on a 3.5 year, 5 year, 8 year wait list. As soon as we pop up, they're like, can you do it now? And you're like, well, not now, but we're going to be doing it within the next 3 months. Oh, I want it done sooner. And well, look, we've got to work within a time frame, because sometimes constraints are put on us by the integrated care boards, which is where we have the contract with. So depending on where we are in England, but yeah, we're doing our bit, and we'll always do our bit.
Do you know what, Jonathan, as well, right? And this is for the parents listening, having experienced it. The diagnosis is just the start of the journey.
Yeah.
You almost mourn a little bit. You get the diagnosis and you almost hit a mourning period where you're like, it's an acknowledgement of all the pain you've been through, both you and your child, but it's just the start. Like for us, getting the diagnosis, I don't know, I think in our heads, we'd built up this unspoken rule that once we got the diagnosis, everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, that was just the start of the understanding journey. And then we went through multiple rounds of going on classes and courses and anything that offer us. And I said to my wife, we came out of one, and I said, I'm starting to realise now that we are being trained to understand that it's not going away. We just need to learn to cope with it and help them cope with it. And I think maybe it's our health system that makes us think things are just there to be fixed, and we can fix it with a pill. When
that's
actually,
the mentality, isn't it? That's what we've been fed. Is that it's like when you go to the hospital with a broken leg, you get a plaster on, but you've then got another 9 months of getting over it and physio in learning to walk again before you're even anywhere near where you need to be. So it's the event. People think that the event is the summit, when it's not. It's base camp. You've then got to climb to the summit, behind the climb of supporting somebody with ADHD, whether it's yourself or one of your kids, it's just the starting point of the diagnosis. My experience is that having the diagnosis was like a huge unburdening. I was able to forgive myself about things that I'd carried and never thought I'd be able to forgive myself for, in terms of my behaviour, how I thought, how I felt, right? This emotional dysregulation, disconnection, like little empathy, compassion, and then learning more about it and having that experience, it lifted, and I was able to forgive myself. It was like a second surrender almost. And you talk about being humbled. I was re-humbled. I've been humbled when I got sober, right? And I went through the process of making amends and people forgiving me, right?
I think people can forgive you when you can forgive yourself, can't they? Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Part 2 for me was at 48 when I got my diagnosis, and the unburdening happened again. And
so it was only 2 years ago you got your diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah,
and I'm feeling even more comfortable in my own skin now. That I'm like, oh, this is it.
I'm not weird. Yeah,
maybe I'm still a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But,
I used to ask myself. I was really interested, and things had happened. I'd lay in bed, and I'd usually be high as a kite, and I'd be in my own head thinking, "Why am I so weird?
Yeah,
why can't I just be normal?" When I'm in large groups, why do I feel like a black sheep? Do you know what I mean? Why can't I tune into the conversation and be part of the group? Why am I, and it's because my head would be elsewhere, like you say.
I'd much rather be in a 2 or 3 conversation than a 5 or 10 round table, in terms of just like the comfort. And I've been in some really uncomfortable situations that I've felt really anxious in, and because I've not known what they're talking about, because they are super educated, intelligent, academic individuals. And I'm like, I don't even get what you're on about, and I think I'm all right. I'm relatively smart, but you're talking on a different level. And therefore I feel inferior, and I'm struggling to even say something, because my experience, and I'll finish on this if I may, is like my experience was, because when I was at school, right, with ADHD, not knowing I've got ADHD, and I'm in a classroom and the teacher says to me, Edgeley, answer that question. And I go, I've not been listening. I don't even know what question you asked. I've no idea what the question is. And he starts getting on at me, and I can feel myself going red, and I can feel myself getting really anxious. And I think I've got 1 or 2 options here. I either make something up and everyone laughs at me, or I tell him to fuck off and leg it.
Which option did you pick?
Fuck off and legged it.
Yeah, just flee. No, I can relate to the classroom.
Remove myself from the situation to save rejection and embarrassment. Things are a little bit different now, and no questions daft questions we emphasise at work. But
yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Well, I've really enjoyed the chat. If anyone's heard this, and whether it be an adult who's struggling with addiction, an adult who might be thinking, you know what, I think I've got ADHD, I think I might have autism, I'd like to get checked. Or parents who've been struggling with kids who are screaming at the school gate and don't want to go in, and will only eat chicken nuggets and all those good things.
Mash and peas.
Yeah, mash and peas, yeah. Mash and peas, and it was new potatoes with butter. I'd eat them by the bucket load. How can you help them? How can they find you or your services, and how can they get on that pathway easily? Or where can they find you and reach out to you, Jonathan?
So,
or your team, should I say?
Yeah.
Where's your inbox might be full?
My inbox is always open.
Yeah.
MontroseHealthGroup.com is our website, best place to find all the information. We've got all the information on the clinics, we've got all the information on private assessments, NHS funded assessments, and obviously our residential retreats are on there too. That is the best way. We're also on Instagram. If you find Montrose Health Group, We're on TikTok as well. And
Down with the kids.
Down with the kids. We try to be, and we're on Facebook. If you just any of those platforms, Montrose Health Group, you will find us.
We'll put some links in the
we are here
in the
to
chat
help
as well.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing
Appreciate
as well.
That.
It's been a pleasure.
Loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what they all say.
Yeah.